Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of OU Insiders YouTube channel. My name is Jesse Crittenden, and I am joined by Jason Suchomel of Orange Bloods, also of the Rivals Network. They do just incredible stuff over there for a long time. Jason, we have not actually got to meet in person, so this is almost an unofficial meeting. How are you, man? It's good to see you.
You too, Jesse. Hey, man, talked to you on the phone earlier this week, so good to talk to you. And hey, it's today's day and age, right? We meet over Zoom sometimes for the first time. So first time to meet face to face, but good to meet you and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time. Jason, how long have you been covering Texas?
You're gonna make me feel old, man. Well, let's put it this way: I've been with Orange Bloods and Rivals for 22 years, and then prior to that, I was covering them for a magazine for two or 3 years. So coming up on 25 years, man. So, yeah.
Gotcha. You and I are in the same boat. This is my third year covering OU. So just about the same.
Not quite, yeah. 25, 3, yeah, not quite. But it's been a fun run, a lot of ups and downs for Texas. I was here for the national championship run, and then I've been here for a lot of mediocrity too. So it's nice to, like you and I were talking before we came on camera. It's nice to be covering a game with what look like two really good teams, right?
Yeah, no kidding. First time both teams are undefeated in since 2011, which is kind of remarkable if you think about it. I mean, the history of both these programs, the pedigree, the incredible athletes. It's kind of remarkable that not only both undefeated for the first time in a while, but I think championship aspirations, both highly ranked. Obviously, both teams meeting this weekend on Saturday at 11 a.m. Game will be at ABC. And Jason, we were talking a little bit before before we started, but every OU Texas game is unique. Every OU Texas game is huge. But Jason, from a Texas perspective, does this game feel unusually big, or does it feel like an even bigger opportunity than normal, considering where Texas is at 5-0, number 3 in the country, already a win over Alabama? Does this feel unique from that perspective?
Yeah, I think it does. You mentioned it's been forever since they've both been 5-0, so this is kind of a new feeling for usually. And frankly, it's been Texas usually that hasn't held up its end of the bargain leading up to this game. They've usually stumbled once or twice or sometimes more. But this game always is exciting, right? Every single year. I don't care if both teams don't, neither one has a win. It's still going to be exciting. Maybe not leading up to the game, but once you get Saturday morning, that game gets the blood flowing. This year, it's a different vibe, man. Everybody's exciting. Everybody just wants to hit the fast forward button and get to Saturday. And where it's different, I think, Jesse, from a Texas perspective, Longhorns are ranked highly. They're ranked third in the nation, and some people are making what I think is a legitimate case. Hey, maybe Texas could be ranked number 1 in the country. Okay, Georgia didn't look great against Auburn, and Michigan's been here or there. So you've seen people make a case. Hey, Texas might be playing as well as anybody in the country. You mentioned they beat Alabama in Alabama, beat Kansas last week, which doesn't look too sexy, but that was a ranked Kansas team. This is another feather in the cap if Texas can go out this week and say, hey, we just beat another highly ranked, really good team. I wouldn't be shocked, depending on how the game goes, obviously. But if Texas can pull off the win, I mean, Texas might garner enough votes to maybe move up those polls. Who knows? Maybe even to the top spot in the polls. So it's a different vibe. Texas fans, and I keep wanting to just tell them, like, okay, I get it, guys. It's fun, it's exciting, but don't get too out ahead of yourself. Don't get over your skis too much here, because they've got to take care of business. It's no foregone conclusion. This is a really good Oklahoma team. When they're playing well, they can certainly get Texas. So they've got to take care of business on Saturday. I think Texas fans are optimistic, but with this game, there's always kind of a cautious optimism, right? Everybody understands it's a rivalry game. You throw the records out the window, as they say. So, but yeah, it does have a different feel, and it just keeps the excitement level, I think, every passing day just keeps ratcheting up. And I've been doing this a long time. As we talked about, I don't really get emotionally invested in games. I mean, I went to UT. I was a Texas fan when I went to Texas. I mean, obviously, but this job, Jesse, it kind of sucks the fandom out of it. We're supposed to be neutral, right? And the job sometimes does that in itself. I always tell people it's made me a much bigger NFL fan than I am a college fan anymore, because colleges work. But I got to admit, man, this week I'm excited, dude. I'm excited for this game. It just keeps building each day, and I'm excited to see how it plays out on Saturday.
Yeah, man, everything you just said about, getting more into the NFL and this kind of sucking the fandom out of
Yeah.
you a little bit. God, I could
My
not
friends are
relate to
like, dude, you got
anything.
the dream job. And I'm like, yeah, remember that when I'm working Saturday at 1 in the morning and you guys are like sleeping or drinking beer all day Saturday or at the beach or whatever. And I'm working every Saturday during the fall and in spring and now summer. And it's just a never ending job. Not complaining. I love my
That's
job. Wouldn't trade it for the
exactly.
world. But I always say, Jesse, hey, and I do a lot of recruiting too. I cover a ton of recruiting for Orange Blood. So I was like, I feel like I'm a doctor that's on call 24/7 because you never know when news is going to break or you're going to have to do something. But much less important than a doctor, but it is that kind of job. But yeah, you take the good with the bad, and there's definitely a lot of good that comes with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said, Jason, I agree with you. I think this weekend for both teams feels even bigger than normal, which is kind of shocking. To say that in a rivalry that's had so many twists and turns and is as long running as this is.
Yeah.
But before we get to this weekend, I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions from a Texas perspective. Just like as you and I talked yesterday, I think one of the unique things about being a beat reporter or covering a team day in and day out is I think there are some things you can only know about a team if you cover them day in and
Right.
day out. But also, if you have that kind of job, your ability to watch other teams or to watch other college football games, it's hard, especially on Saturdays where you're getting there hours before the game, you're staying hours after. So I just wanted to ask you from a Texas perspective, you mentioned, there's been some tough years the last decade or so, but this is
Mhm.
a year where it seems like things are kind of going together on both sides of the ball, 5-0 with a win over Alabama. I think the excitement was high last year too, and it still finished in a decent but probably disappointing season.
Yeah.
What has stood out to you so far about the way this Texas team has played? Is there anything on either side of the ball that's stood out to you or is maybe different from last year?
Yeah, it's a good question. If I'm kind of highlighting one area, I mean, everybody knows Quinn Ewers, right? And Xavier Worthy and Jonathan Brooks has really come on in the running game, and he's third in the country rushing all of a sudden. And everybody thought the running game would be down when Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson left the program, and it has not been. Jonathan Brooks has been fantastic. But honestly, Jesse, if I'm thinking if there's one thing that's kind of stood out to me, it's the defense and probably that front seven. You think of Steve Sarkisian, you think, okay, it's going to be an offensive team, and they're going to throw it all over the ball, all over the field, and it's going to be a finesse team. And we kind of all preseason or leading up to fall camp, that's kind of what everybody expected this team to be. And then they get into fall camp, and we're checking our sources. Of course, locked out of practices, most practices, but we check into sources, and we keep hearing, hey, man, this defense is incredible, and it's winning these scrimmages, and the front seven is winning against a very good offensive line. And I'm the guy, Jesse, I'm like, it's kind of a running joke on Orange Bloods. I'm always the guy that's like, slow down, dude. I got to see it to believe it. All right. You know, let's not anoint this guy number one draft pick after one practice. Right. So I wanted to see it to believe it. And lo and behold, man, it's been true and then some. This defensive front has been fantastic. It showed up every single week. I mean, they bullied Alabama. I mean, they bullied some pretty good offensive fronts. So that's been the one thing that has stood out to me is this offense can almost have an off day, and they've had moments. I mean, they struggled against Wyoming for 3 quarters, and the season opener against Rice, the offense, wasn't too crisp. You kind of expect that in game one, but the offense can struggle, I think, and this team can still be a really good football team because the defense has been so good. And that starts with their front seven and that defensive line in particular. They've just been manhandling people. So I'll be curious to see, again, it'll be another good test from this week against Oklahoma. But that's been the one thing that stood out to me, kind of a bit of a surprise. That wouldn't say it was unexpected. Like I said, we kind of heard that from sourcing, but I wasn't fully buying into it until the season started. But that defensive line's been really, really good.
Yeah, you say that, man. And I think that's the thing about Texas is there's not been a shortage of elite talent in the door. It seems like it's always been, maybe an issue with cohesion or getting everybody on the same
Yeah.
page, getting everybody bought in. You look at the stats, Jason. I mean, this team is number 2 in the Big 12 in scoring defense, less than 13 points per game. They're number 1 in passing defense in the Big 12. Number 2 in rushing defense. I mean, they're not even allowing 95 rushing yards per game. I mean, this Texas defense, the thing that that I think a lot of people keep saying from an OU perspective is OU's offense has been pretty good through 5 games. They have not faced anybody like this Texas
Yeah.
defense. That's the
And they'll be
reality.
and Texas will make it tough for them to run the ball, and I know that's been an issue for Oklahoma. So I'm curious to see that dynamic. If Texas can take away the running game, which statistically, I mean, things don't always play out the way they're supposed to on paper, of course, but statistically, it looks like Texas will probably be able to negate the running game for Oklahoma. Can Dylan Gabriel do it, against a good secondary and a defensive front that's able to get pressure without having a running game threat to keep this defense honest? I don't know. I mean, you guys see Dylan Gabriel a ton, and it seems like he's been really good at times, but maybe against the best opponents, someone had a stat, I can't remember, they showed his passing numbers against, ranked teams, and it wasn't always great. So this will be a test unlike he's seen before. And I mean, quarterback play from one week to the next, you might not always know what you're going to get. Maybe Texas gets a Dylan Gabriel that's white hot and he's just peppering passes all over the field. I don't know, but he'll face a tough test this week, and we'll see what he's made up against a pretty good Texas defense.
Yeah, no kidding. And looking to the other side of the ball, you briefly touched on it. Look at the offense; the numbers are pretty good. I mean, averaging over 36 points per game. But I wanted to ask you specifically about Quinn Ewers. You touched on him a little bit there as well. It looks like for the most part, he's been pretty good this year. I mean, only 1 interception, 10 passing touchdowns. Averaging about 270 passing yards a game. I think there were some knocks on him last year with maybe some inconsistencies, things like that. But it seems like you said, it's not been all great. I mean, I think even though OU offense, I mean, just 20 points against Cincinnati, those type of things are going to happen. But overall, are we seeing a more mature, developed Quinn Ewers this year?
Yeah, you absolutely are. Last year he came in with so much hype. I don't know that the expectations were realistic, but I mean, if we're being honest, Jesse, he was a pretty average quarterback last year. I mean, I don't know if you got to see it, but last year against Alabama, he gets hurt. I think it was early in the second quarter. I mean, he put up unrealistic or incredible numbers in the first quarter. Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's going to be the first draft pick in the NFL someday." And then after that, he's injured and he comes back, and he had a good game against Oklahoma, but he was pretty average for a lot of that season, and frankly had a couple bad games. Now this season, he hasn't put up the huge numbers. He's not putting up 400-yard pass. He's not Michael Penix up at Washington, where every time you look up, he's thrown for 450 yards. But what he's done is he's been efficient and he's protected the football. He did throw his first interception last week against Kansas. It was just a bad decision. He kind of tried to force it to the backup tight end, a ball that shouldn't have been thrown. But he's making a lot better decisions. He's making quicker reads. He's been pretty accurate, and he's hit on some deep passes, which was a real struggle last year. This year, he's throwing the deep ball a little bit better. He's actually shown off some really good athleticism too the last 2 weeks with long touchdown runs. And the other big thing about it that's different this year, he's got a lot of weapons. I mean, last year they had some weapons. I mean, Xavier Worthy's been there, Jordan Whittington, obviously Bijan was there in the running game. But this year they're bringing Adonai Mitchell at receiver. I mean, JT Sanders at tight end, who may or may not play this week. But JT Sanders at tight end has been effective. I mean, last year it was kind of like if you take Xavier Worthy out of the equation, maybe you bracket him, or he was injured a lot last year too. So Texas didn't have enough to absorb that kind of loss. This year, I mean, for instance, Jatavian Sanders, arguably the second best tight end in college football right now. He may not play this week. You know what? I don't think Texas is sweating that much. They've got enough other weapons that they can spread the ball around and absorb that kind of loss. So to answer your question, yes, Quinn is playing really good football. He's made that kind of progress that you'd expect him to make. But he's also getting a lot of help for some pretty talented teammates.
Well, I think that speaks to, I mean, sometimes it's not about throwing for 500 yards and 8 touchdowns a game. I think it's about getting the ball where it needs to go, making good decisions, leading an offense. I mean, you look at last week's game against Kansas. I mean, I don't know if that Kansas defense is the best Texas is going to see all year, but you still go for nearly 700 total yards. You put up a bunch of points. I think there is almost a value maybe in being able to show restraint, not having to go for the $1 million play. And maybe that was where some struggles were last year for him. But we look at what happened in this game last year. He didn't really need to do a lot. That OU defense was wasn't good. That's the best way you could say it. That OU defense was not very good. And I think the morale was just down with Dylan Gabriel being out. I mean, the OU offense couldn't do anything against that Texas defense. I think both sides of the ball for both teams are going to be challenged. a little bit more this weekend. So, so as we look ahead to this weekend, um, I'll kind of give the floor to you, Jason. What matchup are you looking forward to most out of this game? Like for me, I'm really curious about OU's offensive line against that Texas defensive line. That's really what I'm interested in, especially with OU struggles to run the ball. But what's a matchup, either a player matchup or a position group matchup you're really looking at?
Yeah, you and I are kind of on the same wavelength there. I think the Texas defensive line will be able to control that matchup. Okay. And some of that includes obviously shutting down the running game, keeping Dylan Gabriel contained, on quarterback runs. If that unfolds the way I think it is, and Texas kind of controls that matchup, I'm really interested to see Dylan Gabriel against a good Texas secondary. This is a talented secondary that's got, four-star Rivals 100 type players sprinkled throughout the secondary. There's even a couple guys that were 5 stars in there. That being said, they've given up a couple plays, deep plays. Okay. Happened again last week against Kansas. So, and Dylan Gabriel's shown he can take some deep shots and connect on them. So the way I see this game unfolding a little bit, I think that Texas will negate the running game. I think Texas will control the line of scrimmage when Texas is on defense. How good is Dylan Gabriel? How good is he? He's been incredible this year. His numbers are off the charts. How good is he though when faced with when he's got to carry the load? Okay, on his own, he's going to Texas. They may not get him on the ground every time, but they'll make him uncomfortable back there, and they should be able to get some pressure on him. So I'm really interested to see Dylan Gabriel faced up against a good Texas secondary when he's got some heat coming on him. Let's see what he's made of. We didn't get to see him in this game last year, and he's a fantastic player. He's been around for a long time. He's not new to this type of situation. Or actually, he is new to this type of situation. So this is a whole new environment that Dylan Gabriel hasn't experienced before. But yeah, I'm curious to see how he holds up against a really good Texas secondary. Good most of the time, but has given up some shots. Can they keep Dylan Gabriel in check?
Forgive my cat here who decided he's got. Anyways, no.
Hey, you got a burnt orange cat. Your viewers may not like that, man.
I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna Photoshop him into crimson colors.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
No, I think that's kind of my thought going into this too. Is I think OU's, and we've talked about it, that OU's running game. It's not just that they're struggling to generate consistent offense, but the rotation has kind of been all over the place too. I mean, Marcus Major has been the guy the last 2 weeks. But he's not running super efficiently. He's averaging 3.9 yards per carry. This OU rushing offense overall, 4 yards per carry. That's just when you look at that compared to what Texas's rushing defense has done. Yeah, I do think this is going to be really, even dating back to last year, maybe the first real time where Dylan Gabriel is going to have to put the whole team on his back. And that's a tough thing to ask. I think we're going to find out a lot more about Dylan Gabriel this weekend. But you look on the other side of the ball, OU's rushing defense has been pretty good too this year. Now they haven't faced anybody quite like somebody like Alabama, but this OU rushing defense has been good. I mean, after struggling a little bit early against Iowa State, I mean, they only gave up 29 rushing yards to Iowa State in the second half. Overall, just 106 yards per carry. I ask you, Jason, do you think Texas, or from your perspective, you think Texas is pretty confident that they're going to be able to run the ball, or is there any concern that, hey, Quinn Ewers is going to have to make some plays on Saturday?
Yeah, I think they come into this game pretty confident, and they should. I mean, Jonathan Brooks has been on a heater, the last couple of weeks, and went over 200 yards last week. That Kansas defensive front, believe it or not, was considered the strength of their team. And Texas just shoved them around and marched the ball. I mean, they rushed. You mentioned they had almost 700 yards of offense, and it was evenly distributed. I mean, it was like, I don't remember the exact totals, but 330 something passing and 330 something rushing. I mean, it was. So Texas has shown it's been able to run the ball against a pretty good defensive front. In Kansas, they've kind of just hit their stride, if you will, with the running game the last couple of weeks. I mentioned Jonathan Brooks now is up to third in the country in rushing. I'm looking at it now. He's almost at 600 yards, averaging just under 7 yards a carry. That's going to have to be priority number one for Oklahoma. They're going to have to take that running game away. You just can't let a team just kind of get physical and march up and down the field with the running game. So Oklahoma's not going to make it easy. I understand that, but I think Texas is coming into this game. I mean, they're not going to rush for 300 yards. I don't think anybody's expecting that, but I think they feel like they can come into this game and run the ball effectively enough to at least keep the defense honest, then use some play action stuff. Everybody thinks of Steve Sarkisian, understandably, because he played, BYU and has coached at USC, and even the Alabama team he had could throw the ball. Everybody thinks of Sark as a guy that's just going to go out there and just have his quarterback just wing it all over the place and throw the ball 50 times. He'll tell you, hey, man, I'm a run first coach. He wants to be able to run the ball first. So, I think we'll see some of that this week. I think Texas will be successful. What does that mean? Are they going to run for 150, 170 yards? Are they going to, I don't know what that means, but I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively enough to at least have a balanced offensive attack.
Let me ask you this, and this is kind of a question I've asked a couple people this week, and I think it's an interesting thought exercise. But kind of going along with everything you've just said, if Texas, why does Texas win this game, and then why does Texas lose this game? If there's one thing that you're already told they won the game, you're like, oh, this is what must have happened, or they lost the game, this is what must have happened.
Yeah. Well, why does Texas win this game, Jesse? I mean, your viewers won't like this answer, but I just think Texas is a more talented team. I think they've got more explosive playmakers on offense. I think they've got a better defense overall. I know Oklahoma's defense has played well, but Texas has played some pretty good offensive teams and held up pretty well. I just think if both teams play up to their best abilities, I think Texas is a better team. Why does Texas lose this game? Quinn Ewers, he had his first interception last week. It's the only one he's thrown all year, but he's had a couple others who've been pretty close. He's gotten a little bit lucky, including he had another one last week. Oklahoma has been able to force some turnovers with, in the passing game in particular. If Quinn Ewers doesn't play a clean ball game, I think Oklahoma can win this game. So if Oklahoma wins this game, I think it's going to be, hey, it's because Quinn Ewers didn't play up to his potential, didn't play the way he's played all year. Maybe turn the ball over once or twice, and then Oklahoma can get the win for sure. But I think if both teams play up to their best potential, I would probably pick Texas to win this game.
I would agree with both. I came into the year, even before any games were played. So again, how much is that analysis worth? Right. But I do think Texas overall is probably a little bit more talented. However, after 5 games, I will say I'm surprised by this OU defense. The improvement from last year to this year, even through 5 games, I think is pretty legit. And to me, I agree with you. I think if you're OU's defense, I think you maybe not sell out, but I think you've got to get pressure on Quinn Ewers and try to force him into some mistakes. Because I think for me, it's if this gets into Texas controlling the pace, winning the field position battle, I think that's just going to be too much for OU to overcome. But if OU can force some turnovers and get, and that OU offense can establish almost a track meet like pace, that favors Oklahoma. But I think if it's about just winning the battle at the line of scrimmage and allowing Texas to operate at their pace, I just think that naturally is a disadvantage for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and we're listening. You and I are breaking this down, and we'll continue to break it down. And this game never goes the way you think it's going to go, right? I mean, it never goes the way it should on paper. So we may find ourselves in a 9-6 ball game in the fourth quarter or something crazy like that. That's why this game's so fun, and we all love it so much because, truly. And this, I've seen really bad Texas teams go up there and play Oklahoma well. I mean, I've been covering and going to this game since my days in college back in the early 90s, and you just never know from year to year, from week to week. I mean, Texas has been an explosive offense. Oklahoma's been an explosive offense. Does that mean that's what we're going to see on Saturday? Not necessarily, man. That's the beauty of it.
Well, and I couldn't agree more. And I'll say this too. I think this game is really, we talked about some of the unique pressures of this game, but I mean, to me, if both teams have a shot to be 6-0 after this game, you look at the rest of the Big 12 landscape. I mean, the path to a Big 12 title, I mean, if you win this game, a path to a Big 12 title, path to a college football playoff, I mean, it's there. It's tangibly there. And so I think, so that's why I think this is more unique this is interesting, not only in the context of last year's shellacking that Texas gave, but I think if you're OU, you have a chance to bounce back from that, and all of a sudden you have a chance to go from 6-7 to a really, really good year where you win the conference. And if you're Texas, you've been dying for a year like this, right? You've been dying for an opportunity to recover from several bad seasons and all of a sudden be at the top of the college football world. I don't know if we've seen circumstances quite like this before for a
In
Red
a
River
long,
rivalry.
long time. We're going back to Mac Brown and Bob Stoops days, and we didn't have a conference. Well, they did have a conference championship for most of those, but and I'll tell you this. I mean, if whoever loses this game certainly isn't out of the Big 12 race, and I'm not even sure they're out of
Yeah.
the national championship race. I mean, assuming you don't get, like you said, beat like they did last year. But if Texas or Oklahoma lose this game in competitive fashion, it's a one-score game. I mean, both these teams obviously are still in the Big 12 championship race, but they're both still probably in the conversation for the national championship and college football playoff. So it's a huge, huge game, but it's not a game where if either team loses and plays well, that you're just going to see a team crumble and throw in the towel, because there's still a lot of football left to be played and a lot on the table after this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jason, I got to tell you, I think this is, I've been watching the Red River rivalry since I was a little kid. I have very, very fond memories, very, very long time ago memories. I don't know if I've ever been quite this excited for an OU Texas game. I really don't know. And I think and I'll say this, I think OU's had a lot of success the last few years that's coincided with some tough times for Texas. It's just so much better when both
Yeah.
teams are really good and both teams have legitimate championship aspirations. It's just so much better when both teams are good. I mean, it really
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this game's fun when they're both whatever 1-4 or something, but it,
Yeah.
it absolutely is. It makes just ratchets things up a notch. And I mean, not to bring up the Aggies, but I'll just say that. I mean, so when they removed A&M from the schedule, when they went to the SEC, some Texas fans were like, "Oh, great, let's never play them again." I'm like, I'm the total opposite. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
man, I want to see those rivalry games. I want to see them when they're at their best, because, as you said it, man, that's what makes it so exciting. I mean, I listen, if I could hit a button right now and we could fast forward to 11 a.m. on Saturday, I would do it. So let's get to it, and I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
Well, last thing I'll ask you, you've been to a lot of Red River rivalries. What's your game day routine? Do you go walk around? Do you get a funnel cake? What do you do?
You know what? I'm not going this year. Interestingly, Almar Richardson is going to go use our press pass, and I'm taking vacation early Sunday morning, man. So I'm going to be working from that
Uh-huh.
on the house, from the house on Saturday. Yeah, no, I usually, man, you should just get there I'm always there in a working capacity, so I've never been able to go truly enjoy the experience of the state fair. I need to do that. I've got 4 kids who are, now teenagers or getting to be that age. I need to take them up there and truly enjoy the experience. But usually, I've had a funnel cake, but no, I'm not. I don't really have a routine. It's just get there, usually get to work, get my work done, get in and get out, and go on about my weekend. But someday, as I said, I mean, this job makes it tough to be a fan sometimes, right? Someday I'm gonna just hire a youngster like yourself and say, you know what, you're covering the game this weekend. Here's some money. I'm going to go just be a fan and truly enjoy the experience.
Well, and enjoy some barbecue at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's what
Oh
I've
yeah,
had to get used to.
yeah, nothing wrong with that, man. Barbecue's always good. Yeah.
Right. Well, hey, Jason, thank you again so much I know this is a busy week for all of us. So thank you so much for giving a few minutes of your time to break down this game. I think this is going to be awesome. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this special edition of OU Insider. Hit that like and subscribe button on our OU Insider YouTube channel. Go look at Jason's work at orangebloods.com. They do some great work over there. There's going to be some really good breakdowns both here and there from both the Texas perspective and the OU perspective. Again, both teams undefeated for the first time in 12 years going into this game. Both teams ranked in the top 12. It doesn't get much bigger than this. So should be plenty of content to consume and go through. And Jason, again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And let's hope for a good game this weekend.